The skies over Earth were a dull, muted gray, streaked with the lingering ash of civilization's end. A planet once vibrant with life now lay silent and uninhabitable, its ecosystems decimated and its people scattered among the stars. Humanity had known this day was coming for years, yet the final departure was no less heart-wrenching. The last remaining survivors huddled in their spacesuits, gazing through the portholes of the interstellar ships. Each one knew this would be their final glimpse of Earth, the planet that had nurtured them, fought for them, and now had fallen under the weight of their own mistakes. In these ships, they carried only what they deemed essential: supplies, personal mementos, and something far more precious: a seed. This wasn't an ordinary seed. Ancient in origin and enigmatic in purpose, it had been passed down through generations, entrusted to a select few, as the ultimate safeguard of Earth's legacy. No one knew exactly what it would do, but legends told of its potential to rejuvenate life, to bring Earth's essence wherever it was planted. It was the final gift of a dying world, the last hope for humanity's connection to their home. As the ships ascended, leaving behind the ruins of Earth, the weight of their collective history settled heavily upon the passengers. There was a quiet resolve among, a shared understanding that this wasn't just a physical journey, but an emotional one as well. The world they had known was gone, and what lay ahead was a mystery. The fleet of ships, glimmering like stars against the void, navigated the silent vastness of space, each with the seed secured in its cargo. They traveled through worm light, seeking a new beginning, guided only by the star and an ancient trust in their forebears who had foreseen this exodus. After what felt like an eternity, they finally arrived at their destination, a distant planet with a hauntingly familiar yet alien landscape. The new world was stark, its mountains towering in harsh silhouettes, and its valleys stretching out empty canvases. It was a place of both beauty and desolation, filled with untapped potential, but it was devoid of the color, warmth, the life they remembered. Here, amid the alien soil and foreign would begin. The settlers disembarked from their ships, each step a mixture of trepidation and determination. They moved quick, setting up makeshift shelters, distributing supply, and there was much work to serve. This planet, though habitable, was a barren waste compared to the vibrant ecosystem. At the center of their encampment, a small group gathered around a lone was encased, pulsate, otherworld hearts. The time to see if the tales of its power. The settlers dug a shallow line, nutrient-rich, brought the seed inside. A hush fell over, covered a set silent, gentle tread, its eye stretching. Yet as the sun set over their new world, casting long shadows over the landscape, a question lingered in the air, unspoken, but felt by all. Was this seed truly Earth's legacy, or a potential curse, waiting to unfold? They had planted it with hope, but they knew all too well that nature often had its own designs, beyond human comprehension. Only time would reveal the true nature of Earth's final gift. With that thought, they settled into the first night on their new planet, the seed glowing faintly beneath the alien soil, a quiet, pulsing reminder of what they had left behind and what lay ahead. Morning arrived on the new planet with a quiet, pale light, illuminating the settlers' temporary encampment. The initial fervor of their arrival had settled into a steady rhythm of work and survival. Despite the uncertainty of their new environment, there was an undercurrent of optimism. The seed they had planted the day before had taken root, and its first shoot had emerged, defying the alien soil. For the settlers, it was a small miracle, a reminder of the resilience they had hoped to bring with them from Earth. In the center of the camp, where the seed had been planted, a small crowd had gathered to witness its growth. The sprout, once delicate and fragile, had transformed overnight. Its stem was thicker, more robust, and its leaves had developed a deep green hue that was almost unnaturally vibrant against the stark landscape. It was a sight both familiar and strange, a piece of Earth thriving where no earthly thing should. As the settlers looked on, they noticed something peculiar. The plant's leaves bore veins that shimmered with a faint silver glow, pulsing rhythmically as if in tune with the heartbeat of the planet itself. For a moment they wondered if this was normal, or a sign of something alien taking hold. But there was little time for hesitation. The colony needed more than just symbols. It needed sustenance and growth. They began to cultivate the area around the seed, preparing the soil for more plants. Although they had brought seeds from Earth, they decided to focus on the progeny of this unique plant. If the seed was truly imbued with Earth's essence, it might provide them with what they needed to survive in this alien environment. They took cuttings, meticulously planting them in rows, and tended to them as if they were newborns. Days passed, and under the watchful care of the settlers, the plants flourished. The sprout had grown into a towering stalk, branching out into a network of vines and tendrils that wrapped around each other, forming a canopy. It was a swift transformation, and one that defied the expectations of the settlers. Plants they would have expected to take months to grow had reached maturity in mere days. As the plants grew, they began to exhibit even stranger properties. The leaves emitted a faint bioluminescent glow at night, casting an eerie but beautiful light over the camp. Some of the settlers were uneasy, but others saw it as a gift, a sign that Earth's spirit was indeed alive within these plants, adapting to their new world in ways they could never have predicted. Yet, amid the awe, there were signs that all was not well. Some settlers began to experience minor allergic reactions, sneezing fits, rashes, and unusual fatigue. At first, these symptoms were dismissed as mere inconveniences, adjustments to the new environment. But as more people fell ill, concern grew. They had expected some difficulties in adjusting to this new world, but they had not anticipated that the plants themselves might be a source of danger. A team of scientists among the settlers took samples of the plants to study them more closely. They worked tirelessly, analyzing the leaves, stems, and roots, trying to understand the biological processes at play. What they found was both fascinating and troubling. The plants, it seemed, were not simply growing, they were evolving. The silver veins coursing through the leaves were rich with minerals native to the new planet, and the bioluminescence was a defense mechanism against local pests that they had not yet encountered. More troubling, however, was that the plants emitted trace amounts of spores that were not entirely benign. While harmless to the native life forms, these spores had a peculiar effect on humans, triggering mild respiratory issues and skin irritation. The scientists feared that prolonged exposure could lead to more severe symptoms, perhaps even long-term health issues. They knew they needed to address this, but they were reluctant to stop the cultivation entirely. They needed these plants, and more importantly, they needed what the plants represented, a chance to rebuild. The settlers weighed their options carefully. A small faction argued that they should uproot the plants before things got worse, but most were unwilling to abandon their new source of life. They compromised, deciding to restrict access to the areas with dense plant growth and to establish protective measures to minimize exposure to the spores. They worked day and night, fashioning rudimentary masks from the limited supplies they had brought with them, hoping it would be enough to keep them safe while they tended to their precious crop. Despite the growing risks, the plants continued to spread, adapting more rapidly with each passing day. The settlers marveled as new species emerged, each with unique properties that hinted at Earth's influence mingling with the alien environment. They found fruits that tasted of familiar Earth flavors, though tinged with a strange metallic aftertaste. There were flowers that bloomed with colors they had never seen, vibrant and iridescent, as if capturing the essence of both worlds. But as the plants grew, so did the settlers' unease. They began to notice subtle changes in their own behavior. Tensions ran high, arguments flared over minor issues, and a sense of paranoia began to creep into the camp. The scientists speculated that the spores might have more subtle effects on the human mind, possibly influencing emotions and mental states. Yet, they lacked the equipment to confirm their suspicions, leaving them with only their fears and the hope that they were imagining things. In the evenings, the settlers would gather around the towering stalk at the center of their camp, its leaves glowing softly under the alien stars. They spoke in hushed tones, sharing stories of Earth, of the lives they had left behind, and the dreams they hoped to build anew. For a moment, they could forget their worries, finding solace in the familiar rhythms of companionship. The seed had given them a new beginning, but it had also brought with it uncertainties and challenges they could never have anticipated. As they gazed upon the plants that now surrounded them, they wondered if this new life was a gift from Earth, or if it was something far stranger, a force beyond their control. As night fell, the plants cast their bioluminescent glow across the camp, and the settlers could only hope that this fragile new world would not demand too high a price. They had brought Earth with them, but now it seemed that Earth had its own plans, and they were merely along for the ride. The seeds of hope had taken root, but so too had the seeds of doubt. In this alien land, the settlers stood on the precipice of a new chapter, one that would test their resolve, their unity, and their understanding of the very essence of life itself. The legacy of Earth was unfolding before them, and they had yet to understand whether it would be their salvation or their undoing. The settlers had hoped that the first signs of life on this new planet would be a bridge to a better future, a thread connecting them to their lost home. Yet, as days turned into weeks, the lush growth brought by the seed was beginning to reveal its darker side. What had started as a hopeful experiment was quickly becoming an uncontrollable force, reshaping the landscape and testing the limits of human resilience. The plants, now fully established, had spread well beyond the initial planting site. Their roots extended deep into the alien soil, intertwining with native minerals and drawing up nutrients with relentless vigor. The settlers could only watch as these new life forms thrived, merging Earth's flora with the essence of the alien world. Where there had once been barren stretches of land, now grew dense thickets, their leaves rustling in a wind that seemed to carry whispers of both familiar and foreign worlds. The new ecosystem teemed with alien creatures, animals drawn to the strange plants, some of which resembled Earth's birds and mammals, though with unearthly features. These creatures were initially cautious, skirting the edges of the settlement, but soon grew bold, venturing close enough for the settlers to observe their curious forms. There were creatures that glided on membranous wings, their iridescent scales reflecting the glow of the bioluminescent plants, and others that scurried through the undergrowth with chittering calls that echoed eerily in the alien dusk. It was during one of these encounters that the settlers realized just how quickly things had changed. A young settler named Arik had been foraging near the edge of the encampment when he encountered a creature that resembled a deer, but moved with a predatory grace. As he reached out to touch it, the creature recoiled, letting out a shriek that sent a shiver down his spine. Within moments, other animals began to emerge from the shadows, their eyes glinting with an intelligence that seemed almost unsettling. Arik stumbled back, retreating to the safety of the camp, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he had crossed a line, that these creatures were not just watching, but waiting. Back at camp, the scientists had made a disturbing discovery of their own. They had been examining the spores released by the plants, and found that the particles were not merely allergens, but contained properties that influenced cognitive functions. It seemed that prolonged exposure to the spores had subtle effects on mood and behavior, amplifying emotions and heightening sensations. This could explain the growing paranoia and irritability among the settlers. The plants weren't just reshaping the land, they were infiltrating the minds of those who lived among them. Alarmed, the scientists presented their findings to the colony's council. The settlers debated fiercely, torn between the need to preserve the new life they had cultivated and the potential threat it posed. Some argued that the plants were their only chance at survival, a means of creating a self-sustaining ecosystem on this harsh world. Others were increasingly wary, pointing out that the plants seemed to be evolving at an alarming rate, adapting not only to the soil but to the people around them. Yet, despite their reservations, the settlers continued to expand the planting zones, driven by necessity and a stubborn determination to make this world their own. They fortified their homes with barriers to keep the animals at bay and donned makeshift masks to limit their exposure to the spores. But these measures could only do so much. The plants grew denser, their roots encroaching on human habitats, their leaves casting shadows that seemed to shift with a life of their own. One evening, as the settlers gathered around a central fire, they noticed that the plants were beginning to emit faint sounds, low, resonant hums that rose and fell with the breeze. At first, they dismissed it as a trick of the wind, but as the sounds grew louder, they realized it was something else entirely. The plants were communicating, not just with each other, but seemingly with the world around them. The settlers could feel it in their bones, a vibration that resonated deep within, stirring both fear and fascination. Driven by curiosity, a group of settlers ventured into the heart of the forest, where the plants grew thickest, and the air was heavy with spores. They carried torches and tools, prepared for whatever they might encounter. As they pushed deeper into the foliage, they discovered something that left them speechless. At the center of the forest stood a massive tree, its trunk twisted and gnarled, with branches that stretched out like grasping hands. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a towering giant that seemed to pulse with a life force both ancient and alien. The tree bore fruits that glowed with an inner light, pulsating in rhythm with the vibrations that filled the air. The settlers dared not touch them, sensing that these fruits were both a gift and a warning. They had stumbled upon the heart of the new ecosystem, the source from which all other life on this planet seemed to flow. And yet, as they stood there, they felt a creeping unease, a sense that this tree was watching them, measuring their worth and intentions. Word of the discovery spread quickly through the camp, and soon, everyone had heard of the tree that stood at the center of the forest. It became a point of both reverence and dread, a place that no one dared to approach lightly. The settlers had brought Earth with them, but now it seemed that Earth had brought something else, a force that was both nurturing and consuming, a life that would thrive no matter the cost. As the days passed, the settlers noticed that the plants around the tree grew different. Their leaves were dark, their roots deep, and their spores more potent. The animals, too, seemed affected, moving with a purpose that hinted at a deeper intelligence. The settlers began to feel as though they were interlopers in a world that was not theirs, that the plants and creatures were merely tolerating their presence, waiting for the right moment to reclaim what had been given. Some settlers began to argue that the seed was a mistake, a gift they should never have planted. Others believed that they had simply not yet learned how to coexist with this new life, that they needed to adapt as much as the plants had. But all agreed on one thing: the seed was no longer under their control. It had grown beyond their understanding, and now they could only hope that they would not be consumed by the legacy they had brought with them. As the night fell over the encampment, the glowing fruits of the tree cast an eerie light over the forest, illuminating the path back to their fragile homes. The settlers returned to their shelters, burdened by the weight of their choices and the knowledge that they had unleashed a force they could not contain. The seed had given them hope, but it had also revealed the depths of their own fears and the limits of their control. They had wanted a new beginning, a chance to rebuild Earth among the stars. But now, as they lay awake, Listening to the hum of the plants and the distant calls of alien creatures, they wondered if they had brought a curse upon themselves, a curse wrapped in the guise of life, a legacy they could neither escape nor fully embrace. The line between survival and surrender was growing thinner by the day, and they could only wait to see which side they would ultimately fall. Tensions had reached a breaking point within the encampment. The settlers, once united by the shared hope of a new beginning, were now divided, their faith in the seed fracturing under the weight of the unknown. What had started as an optimistic journey to cultivate a piece of Earth on this alien planet had transformed into a struggle for survival against an ecosystem that seemed to be taking on a life of its own. The plants had become more aggressive, their roots spreading underfoot with a persistence that defied any attempt to contain them. At night, the settlers could hear the crackling of wood as the vines crept over the ground, weaving their way toward human structures, as if testing their resilience. It wasn't long before they began to find small breaches, roots penetrating the walls of their makeshift homes, tendrils sneaking into the cracks as though seeking entry. The settlers responded by digging trenches and erecting barriers, but these measures provided only temporary reprieve. The plants seemed to adapt, finding ways to bypass each new defense with uncanny precision. It was as if they were learning, sensing the settlers' fear, and responding to it with calculated tenacity. Even the animals had become bolder, their behaviors more coordinated, as if they too were part of the plant's strange, synchronized assault. Amid this chaos, a faction of settlers proposed a drastic solution: destroy the seed and uproot the entire forest. They argued that the only way to survive was to eliminate the threat before it consumed them entirely. But others were not so sure. They saw the seed as their only chance at sustainability, a way to cultivate food and resources in an otherwise barren landscape. Destroying it might ensure their short-term safety, but it would also cut them off from the possibility of a future. At the heart of this debate stood Lyra, one of the colony's leading scientists. She had spent countless hours studying the seed and its effects, trying to understand its nature. She had once believed in its promise, but now, like everyone else, she was beginning to question its purpose. The latest round of tests had revealed something troubling. The plants were emitting a new type of spore, one that seemed to have an even stronger influence on human physiology. The spores were not only causing physical symptoms, but were also subtly affecting their thoughts and emotions, deepening their fears, and amplifying their anxieties. The revelation forced Lyra to confront a terrifying possibility: that the seed wasn't merely a life-giving force, but something far more complex, perhaps even sentient. If the seed was aware of their presence, could it be manipulating them, drawing on their fears to spread its influence? The thought was almost too much to bear, but Lyra knew she had to face it. The survival of the colony depended on understanding the true nature of the seed and finding a way to control it. With a heavy heart, she called for an emergency council meeting, presenting her findings to the other settlers. The reaction was immediate and visceral. Some shouted that they had been right all along, that the seed was a curse and had to be destroyed at once. Others demanded more evidence, unwilling to give up the one thing that had sustained them in this alien world. The debate raged on, voices rising and tempers flaring as they argued over their next steps. It was then that Arik, the young settler who had first encountered the strange creatures, stood up and spoke. "I've seen what the seed can do," he said, his voice carrying a note of defiance. "I've seen how the plants react to us, how they seem to anticipate our moves. But I've also seen beauty in this place. I've seen flowers that glow like the stars, creatures that move with grace and intelligence. This world is dangerous, yes, but it's also alive in a way Earth never was. If we destroy the seed, we destroy our only link to that life." The dawn broke with a sense of foreboding over the encampment, as the settlers prepared for what they knew would be a decisive day. Lyra's revelation had changed everything. The seed was a mirror, reflecting their intentions, their fears, and their hopes. It had grown beyond their control, but it had also given them a rare opportunity, a chance to redefine their relationship with this strange new world and with themselves. The previous night's discussions had ended with a difficult decision. The settlers had agreed to return to the heart of the forest one last time, this time with a different purpose. They would attempt to commune with the tree and the life it had spawned, not to dominate, but to seek a balance, to forge a new path that honored both Earth's legacy and the alien landscape they now called home. As the group set out, they moved with quiet determination. The alien forest, once stark and barren, was now a lush, vibrant ecosystem, teeming with life forms they could barely comprehend. The plants around them seemed to watch, their leaves quivering as if in anticipation. Even the alien creatures moved aside, as if recognizing the gravity of the settlers' purpose. They arrived at the massive tree that marked the center of the forest. It loomed above them, majestic and terrifying, its twisted branches reaching out like ancient arms. The fruits it bore glowed with an intensity that seemed almost otherworldly, casting an eerie light over the clearing. Lyra stepped forward, joined by Arik and the old man who had planted the seed. They were the first to kneel before the tree, placing their hands on the ground in a gesture of submission, of of willingness to listen. The others followed, each one kneeling in a circle around the tree, their heads bowed as they focused on their breathing, on the rhythms of the forest, on the life that surrounded them. Lyra closed her eyes and opened herself to the vibrations she had felt before, allowing them to seep into her consciousness, to fill her mind with the resonance of the alien world. And then, something extraordinary happened. The ground began to hum, a low, deep vibration that rippled through the earth and into their bones. The tree's branches trembled, and the glowing fruits seemed to pulse in time with their heartbeats. The settlers felt a wave of emotion wash over them, a mixture of awe, fear, and wonder. It was as if the tree was reaching out, responding to their presence, acknowledging their intentions. In that moment, Lyra felt a connection, a thread of understanding that transcended language, that went beyond words. She sensed the tree's age, its wisdom, its awareness. It was neither friend nor foe, but a guardian of life, a vessel of Earth's essence interwoven with the fabric of this alien world. She felt its memories, its experiences, the countless lifetimes it had lived through, carrying with it fragments of Earth and the dreams of those who had come before. Arik spoke, his voice barely a whisper, but it carried through the clearing with a clarity that surprised even him. "We are not here to conquer," he said. "We are here to learn, to adapt, to honor the life that you have given us. We know now that we are only one part of this world, and we seek to live in harmony with it." As his words faded into the stillness, a shift occurred. The roots of the tree seemed to relax, their grip on the earth loosening. The spores that had filled the air became gentler, less invasive, as if retreating in response to the settlers' intentions. The glow from the fruits softened, casting a warm, inviting light over the forest floor. The settlers watched in awe as the tree began to change, its branches lowering, its bark softening, its energy becoming less oppressive. They had made their choice, and the tree had responded. They had approached not with fear, but with respect, and in return, the tree had offered them a gift, a chance to rebuild, to live in balance, to coexist with the life they had brought forth. Over the following days, the settlers worked to adapt their ways, learning from the tree, listening to the rhythms of the forest, respecting the boundaries that nature had established. They built their shelters with the plants, using the bioluminescent leaves for light, the sturdy roots for support, the fruits for nourishment. They learned to breathe with the spores, to accept their influence, to allow the essence of Earth and the alien world to merge within them. They found that the tree's fruits held properties they had not yet understood. Consuming them in small doses seemed to enhance their resilience, their connection to the land, their ability to survive in the new environment. The fruits became a symbol of their bond with the world around them, a reminder that they were part of something larger, something that transcended both Earth and the alien planet. As they settled into this new way of life, the settlers realized that they had not only survived, they had thrived. The seed, once a source of fear and confusion, had become a guide, a teacher, a living link to both their past and their future. The forest, once strange and hostile, had become their home, a place of beauty and mystery that held the secrets of Earth's legacy and the promise of renewal. But even as they embraced their new world, they knew that the journey was far from over. They had been given a second chance, a chance to create a new way of life, to carry Earth's spirit across the stars. They had learned that survival was not about domination, but about understanding, about respect, about finding one's place in the tapestry of existence. And so, as the settlers looked out over the alien landscape, they felt a sense of peace, of purpose. They were no longer lost, no longer adrift in the void. They were part of something vast and beautiful, a legacy that had begun on Earth and would continue among the stars. The seed was not a curse, but a blessing, a reminder that life, in all its forms, was a journey of growth, of change, of endless possibility. As night fell and the forest glowed softly in the darkness, the settlers knew that they had found their place, that they had embraced Earth's final gift, and that they would carry its spirit with them wherever they went, for as long as they lived. The question of whether the seed was Earth's legacy or a curse had been answered. It was both, and it was neither. It was light, in all its complexity, in all its beauty, in all its wonder, and they were a part of it now, forever entwined with the essence of Earth and the mysteries of the stars. They had brought a piece of Earth with them, but in the process, they had discovered something even greater, the resilience of the human spirit, the boundless potential of life, and the enduring power of hope. And as they stood beneath the alien sky, they knew that they were not alone, that they were part of a legacy that would endure long after they were gone, a legacy that would live on in the seeds they planted, in the stars they touched, in the dreams they dared to